Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Things That Keep Me Up at Night podcast. You see, I'm joined here by Nick. Now, you guys know me as a watch enthusiast, as a car enthusiast, a little bit of a gearhead. I have a couple Porsches, a daily Land Rover. My girl drives a Tesla, but there's someone who's much deeper into this than myself. And when I found his account through another one of my buddies, Brock 996 Road Trip, I was like, I got to talk to this guy and pick his brain. And if I could record it, even better. So Nick is here from 944Rallye. And for those of you who know me, not only do I own a 944, I had a tarmac spec Rally STI, but I didn't do all the cool things that Nick does with his 944. So Nick, I already kind of queued you up. Who are you? Why are you here? And why the 944?
So basically I'm a dude that swims in the unknown. Well, I'll just say that. And as far as watches go, like yes, I have a watch, but when you guys were like, "Hey, we're watch guys and Porsche guys," I was like, "Well, I'm half that. I don't know watches."
Is that
You
a
know,
Vero?
yeah, yeah.
It's a
So
Vero
Vero,
workhorse.
yeah, Vero reached out to me and they said, "Hey, this watch, maybe you'd enjoy it in what you're doing. It kind of fits the scheme and the culture of being outside, doing stuff, working like a horse, doing so. But yeah, I mean, I picked the 944, and so let me say something. I'm a car designer, and
Awesome.
I've always wanted to be a car designer because when I was 12, I saw the 944 and it was black and it had yellow calipers, and I was with my dad. And I'm like, what is that? And so from there, I was hooked on this car specifically.
Right.
And I learned, and maybe the story is true or not. Don't bust my bubble if it's not, because it's what got to me to where I'm at. Um, so I heard that the car, like the 924, the original concept, was designed by a college student and won the competition. It was more or less a competition. So Porsche kind of pushed forward and had this front engine, rear slope back, uh, uh, glass
Transaxle.
design. Yeah, transaxle design. So, it gave me hope that a kid could make an impact in the design of automotive
You
world.
could be influential, like
Uh-huh.
directly.
Yeah, directly. So that influenced me to move forward with car design. I didn't know the term designer at that age. I just knew I wanted to draw cars. And I
Right.
saw a picture of a guy wearing a shirt and tie and he was drawing a car. I was like, I want that. You
Uh-huh.
know, 20 years later, I'm like, I hate ties, but I still like drawing cars.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean that's why the 944. As far
So
as like why I made it the way it is, that's a totally different story.
and that's kind of where I wanted to really pick your brain, because for the people who follow me, I've owned a 944 for 4 months or something. So
Oh,
I'm
really?
like learning about this platform. The thing is, and I've spoken about this actually right around the time this podcast is being released, the episode on the Time to Drive channel is coming out on my 944 build. And I kind of went over the fact that when before I owned a 911, I was kind of too much in my own head to admit that I liked front engine Porsches. And but all throughout my childhood, I would see them all the time. The 924s, the 944s, like they were very common in New Hampshire where we lived. And Greg's also from New Hampshire. And um the crazy thing is when I moved out west and now it's 2022, you hardly see any of these front engine Porsches in decent condition. And when you compare your build and your adventure to mine, I mean, I've dropped mine just over an inch. I'm widening it, I'm stiffening it up a little bit, and you have seemed to lift it. You go sideways all the time.
Yeah, I went
You
the other way.
you are like the total other direction. And so that really does speak to the versatility of the 944 platform, huh?
Exactly. So like, a lot of people forever just thought that the 944 was like a track car, your little weekend enthusiast for like
Mm-hmm.
kind of a Porsche for the poor man kind of thing. And it just kind of got stuck in the single lane for so long. And that's what I thought I was going to do with it. I bought it for 1,200 bucks. I was like, I'm going to make a track car, and it was a piece of junk. Like
You did
it,
better than me, man.
Man, like this thing barely ran. It had oil all over inside the engine because the oil cooler separator broke, and so
Hmm.
there's oil in the coolant, and it was just a mess. Barely ran. So I was like, well, I'm gonna rebuild it. So I'm working on the engine, and then got I got into free diving a couple years before that, and I
Very
was on
cool.
a journey up in the mountains, and I got a flat tire on my daily carb, which is a Focus ST. Like I should not have taken
Hmm.
it out there, but I needed to get up there,
Right. Point A to
So
point B, baby.
yeah, exactly. So I'm standing in the parking lot where the Porsche is, and I'm looking at it, and like I don't know if you got siblings, but if you got an older brother, for instance, they'll kind of look at you with a bad idea, and they're like, they got this smirk, like I got an idea, and it's like the little brother's like, oh God, what? Don't hurt me. So it's like I looked at that car and I didn't know what was gonna happen, what I wanted to do and what was gonna happen with it. But then I got the idea of like maybe I can lift it like a rally car kind of thing. And like I'd seen safari cars from the 70s and 80s, but I didn't know. So like I started doing some research and I'll just lay this on the table now. I'm not the first one to do this. Um, I'm the first one to maybe make it this well known, but I'm not the first.
100%. Dude, I'm gonna step in here. You got to give yourself some more credit. There are, when you think of Porsche Safari, you think of like Rothman builds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And there's 911s like that. There are 944s like that. However, even though I was cognizant of those, your account is the first one to show it in action, like
yeah.
actual dynamic, really incredible content. And I'm not just saying that because you're the guest here. Please, guys, we're going to have all his information in the description, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Follow him on Instagram primarily. 944Rallye with an E at the end, the very European way of saying it.
Gotcha.
Follow him on Instagram. If you like dynamic, even if you're not into rally, even if you're not into 944s, if you like dynamic content, incredibly captivating. Seeing cars going sideways, it's just fun to watch. And again, I'm not even that kind, like my 944 is not even going in that direction. And I
Yeah.
think it's just so cool to see, especially because, I mean, thanks to 996 Road Trip, because he was the one that keyed me into you. Follow him as well. Hopefully we can talk to Brock at some point, all three of us, that or all four of us. That'd be really
Yeah,
cool.
that'd
But
be awesome. Like Brock is a rad guy. I just got to interject. Like, first of
yeah,
all, would not be where I'm at without Brock. And like we had met Brock and did a project with him, and that guy is the most helpful, knowledgeable guy. Like I could not
and
have
he's
navigated.
nice. That
He's
this is
nice.
what's weird,
That's the
dude. See,
thing.
see, I got the blue check mark. No, not humble brag. Okay, I got the blue check mark
Yeah.
on Instagram. I don't know, but by the way, everyone asks me how I got it. It just showed up one day. I didn't even like. I think you can like request one through settings or whatever. I didn't even do that. It just showed up in my comment
Oh,
section. It was like,
weird.
"Whoa, you're verified." But Brock is verified. He has an enormous following. It's growing substantially, and I just like I've followed him for a very long time,
When did you
and
start following him?
I followed him on my personal account, like the account that no one know. Well, now people know I have another account. I have another account, guys, that I look at my own personal stuff. Um, Probably a couple years now. And the crazy thing is I've been liking his photos, this and that, and I follow him on the Time Teller account, the Simple Consultant, and he just followed me back one day, and I was
Really?
like, what the heck? And I was like, okay, cool. But
I mean, he's a
then
watch guy too.
he's a watch guy, yeah. And he
Yeah.
he told me he used to be much more into it than he is now. But the interesting thing was like, I was like, okay, he's following me. Like, we both have 996s, whatever. Um, but then like I messaged him just something totally random about one of his story posts. I was like, oh, that's so funny or whatever. And he like started this whole conversation with me. I was like, whoa, this guy's approachable
Yeah.
and actually nice. And so the reason I bring up like the blue check mark is because often when you see like verified accounts or accounts with large followings, it's like it's easy even for me to be intimidated by that because I'm like, these guys probably get inundated by messages. They're like, who knows what they're like. I don't want to like blow up their spot, whatever, whatever. But you'd be surprised how many people that I've been fortunate enough to interact with are actually super approachable, incredibly kind. Nick is one of them. Honestly, he has more followers than me on Instagram. And when I wrote to him, I was like, I don't know if this guy's gonna even respond to little old me, but he's here,
Yeah.
so we got him.
It's so funny, like being in this weird little internet position that I'm in. Like my whole life, I just wanted to stay out of the spotlight. I did not like being center of attention, having, people know about who I
Mhm,
was. But then people started to believe in this idea of this car and what I was using it for. So I was like, oh, okay, people can relate to this idea I have. And I'm like, I can accept that. But like, I get all kinds of people all the time being amazed that I message them back. I'm like, I don't know what you think I am. I'm literally sitting in a room by myself, like, like I'm not this big infamous character. Like, I work with some fairly famous people, is in the automotive world at least.
mhm,
So I work at RTR and Von Gittin Jr. and Chelsea Denofa and Adam LZ. Adam LZ is a big YouTuber.
mhm,
I work with these guys and I see what big internet fame is.
mhm.
So when people, meet me or are surprised to talk to me, I'm like, I don't know who you think I am, but it's amazing. And I appreciate
It's because your work speaks for you, Nick. So when we
right.
when we as like the viewers, the consumers of your content see the content you post, it's like, wow, this guy is like doing stuff. He's
Yeah.
actually he doesn't just have a cool car that he parks like me. Like I just take pictures of my cars at the gas station or whatever. Like you're going to like you're doing things like again, I can't stress this enough. That shoot that you did, the winter shoot
Yeah. That
was
was that was all the same project with Brock. That was
it
all one
was
day.
that is one of the coolest pieces of automotive content I've ever seen. It
Yeah.
is so freaking cool to see these cars sliding around, driving around. When you guys were doing the chase shots, the pickup shots where you guys came in onto the same road together,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was so cool to see. And so, yeah, to speak, if I could speak for you, or at least for the people that consume your content, we're impressed because we see you actually doing stuff with your car. And so I want to talk real quick because this is a bit of a topical endeavor. You've been encountering some issues with your
Oh,
944.
dude, every time. Like, yeah,
And so,
I drive the car, but I break it every time.
right,
Yeah.
you use it. And so my question is, what is the best part in your opinion of the 944 platform, excuse me, and what is the Achilles heel?
So the best part is just the vibe, like when I'm driving that thing, you got the pop-ups up,
Hmm.
you literally feel like you're back in the day. There's something about it that's just cool. And it's an emotional thing. It's not a physical thing. It doesn't matter what the car looks like. It's how it feels, smells, drives, sounds. It's all these inputs into your
Hmm.
body that make it cool. And it could have 100 horsepower. I don't know. It's not much, but it just is this feeling of driving down Miami in the 80s. You got all these synth wave things going on.
Right.
Like it's just a cool thing. Um, so and it's nothing mechanical about it. It's just an emotion.
Hmm.
And then the Achilles heel of it, I would say, is kind of the fact that it's 40 years old. So like I bought it kind of old and junky and
Hmm.
everything needed to be replaced. So it's like you can't just pick it up and drive it.
Right.
You gotta slowly either refurbish it all in one go or replace things as you go.
Right.
Because like all the wires have cracked, all the pumps have broken over
Hmm.
time, nuts and bolts break, and like eventually the engine breaks twice, no, three times now. So it's like it's just old stuff, and you got to rebuild the entire thing, or just be okay with always fixing it. And it
Right.
would probably last longer if I didn't drive it the way I do every single time. But then it's just no fun. Like, why would
Exactly.
I something to drive if I'm not gonna, or something like that if I'm not gonna drive it and beat it up? And like I respect it, but I use things like they're tools, like I have a red camera and I used to think that was the prized camera. That's the pinnacle. And now,
Coveted, best of the best.
yeah, I was like, now that's a tool. Like I've dropped it in the snow. I've gotten it covered in dirt. I like overheated it in
For those
underwater.
of you who are not in the cinematography space, I'm going to give you some insider baseball here. To put it in terms you might understand if you're a watch enthusiast, red cameras are, it's like the Vacheron of camera. Okay, it truly is something. I mean, I'm using Sony Alphas, and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm hot stuff. When I come across dudes with reds, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, like for me to buy that when I did, I was running my own film company and I worked for 5 years to save up enough money to buy it. Like that was the pinnacle, you know.
Yeah,
And but now I'm just like I don't see it as a pinnacle anymore. It's just a tool.
the tool.
And yeah. I'm literally gonna put it 6 inches above the ground to get the shot. And if it gets scuffed and hit, I'm just gonna either repair it or you separate yourself emotionally from it.
Right,
So
right. But
just
that's
enough.
good. Whether it comes to watches, to cars, to camera
Yeah.
equipment, things like this, I mean,
Objects.
there's no point in spending the money on it if you're not going to use it. And so okay, I wanted to jump into this because I bought mine for it was like 7 grand.
Yeah.
It had pretty much most of the big maintenance done. Had, like when it comes to the 996 911, everyone's like IMS bearing, RMS seal, like things like that. And so you have to pick one of those up, and if it hasn't been like gone over yet, you're gonna have to put that investment in and have it done. With this, correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone says timing belt, water pump, like those are the big things that
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to do.
Like
So
every car has this little piece that if it goes, it ends the whole thing, it seems
right.
like. And for the 944, it's the belt.
Okay, so thankfully, and it's not a huge investment either. It's not a huge job to do. But right before I bought mine, brakes were redone, suspension was redone, even though I actually redid the suspension when I got it. The timing belt, water pump was done. Bunch of other like big maintenance things. And it was single
Yeah.
owner, so
Yeah.
I was very thankful for that. However, right now I'm dealing with these little annoyances. I started hearing a vibration above 3K RPM. And I was like, what could this be? Because it's not in the front end, it's in the back end. And so I started revving it, started driving it, putting it under load. Then I realized it's the torque tube.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, instead of like a conventional drive shaft, it's kind of an encased drive shaft, which is it's just a long tube for the drivetrain, and there are these little bearings that go around, and eventually, depending on heat and of course friction and all that, some of the bearings can dethread from the tube, and they just kind of like rattle around in there. Again, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of annoying, and it's not terrible to fix, but I'm dealing with little things like that. And I'm fortunate because I don't know if you've ever said this on camera. I'm going to expose myself here, Nick. Mine is over 200K miles. Have you
Oh,
ever
I
mentioned?
got you beat. I got you beat.
Okay,
Uh,
drum roll.
I bought mine at 240,000 and then the odometer stopped. Like right after I bought it. So it's just who knows where
Who
it's at.
knows?
I don't care. All I know is that everything needs to be replaced. And like for you, you got bolts falling off on the bottom, like coming loose. Like
Mhm.
my exhaust does the same thing every single time. Some
Right,
bolt comes loose no matter how much I crank on it, put lock washers, whatever.
right.
Like there's always gonna be some little rattle somewhere. It's gonna drive you crazy. And then eventually you hear the doo, 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 and
Yeah,
you're like
down the
flies
street.
away.
Yep.
Yeah.
See some sparks flying. See,
Yeah.
but the awesome thing about this, the love of this car, I'm gonna be honest, man. This sounds so cheesy to say, and I mentioned it in the episode that again, you guys, the viewers, may or may not have seen by the time this comes out. Um, Something about the 944. People ask me because I'm on social media and I post a lot about, the cars that I am driving or that I own at whatever time. People always ask me, like, if you could rank your cars, or like, what's your best car, or what car would you never sell, or just to put it bluntly, like, which is your favorite? That's very, very difficult for an enthusiast because each one of the things you own for a reason, right? They
Yeah.
fill different shoes.
Yeah.
But with the 944, it is not a fast car. At least mine is not. Um, It's naturally aspirated. It's not the turbo. Even the turbos aren't that fast, guys,
Yeah.
to be honest. Um, and again, like Nick said, mine might be making 100 horsepower. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but when you drive it, there's it is analog, dude. It is all analog. And your connection to that car, when you throw it in a corner, it
It's
is,
man and machine
dude,
to the purist, you know.
it is the purest analog Porsche. And people don't want to hear that because they're like, well, it's not a 911. The engine's
Yeah.
the wrong place. That's
So
not true.
let me ask you a question. Like
Yeah.
when a lot of people kind of either look as the 944 as kind of a bastard child or the odd one out, like do you get that when you bring it out or socialize in the Porsche car community in general? Do people kind of like not really know how to interact with it?
So, dude, I don't know if you see this, but I'm seeing that change quickly. I'm seeing it really change. And I don't know if it's because, honestly, dude, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, I think people like you have really changed the landscape because if you were to ask me that question, even like 3 years ago, I would probably tell you, yeah, like I would be one of those people. It's like, yeah, the 944, anything transaxle front engine from Porsche is kind of like the bastard Porsche.
Right.
But
So like
it's because I
um
didn't want to admit how cool these were.
yeah. And it takes time for all of a sudden people to realize what they are, you know, and because it was so unique and it was ahead of its time potentially, and it's just a weird thing, and it was a test, you know, it was a test to see what they could do, what they could push the market with. And you know, as
And it
much
was
as
a
Porsche
hit.
is, it was even
Dude,
then.
it was the highest selling Porsche until the Boxster came out in 96.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, as much as Porsche is known for having this 911 and perfecting it
Mm-hmm,
by iteration over time, they do take these little leaps, you know, little tiny ones like with the
mm-hmm.
Panamera or the Cayenne or
Yep.
you know, the 944. Uh, there are all these little leaps that make Porsche this kind of all-encompassing brand. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to bring light into more capability than what people thought.
Mm-hmm.
um, and in turn hopefully inspire that in someone personally, so I can inspire them to be okay with this unknown, to be okay with like, you may not fit in this, but like give it some time. People are going to realize like you're going to be a slow burn, but you know, over time people realize, but like you may have more capability, but you may be held back by fear of the unknown. So, you know, trying out this car to see if it will even lift, if it will drive off road without breaking the knuckles and ball joints and stuff. But like, it's done pretty well. I've done some overly gnarly stuff, and it's like, hey, it's more or less a proven platform to be semi good at safari off road. And it, like my next project is the 986 Boxster S, and I just bought that the other day, and it's another one that's like no one has done it to. You know, Eurowise here in town did it to like a 2008 Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
No one's done it to the convertible Boxster.
Have you
And
found the coveted uh rooftop rails for it?
no, but
You're gonna have to ask Brock where he found them,
I've already talked to him about that. He told me it was nearly impossible to find, but
dude.
the thing is, you can't find those anymore, really, unless you come up on one on eBay that
Right.
just happen to pop up and you're right there. But you know, like I started machining and selling the lift kits for the 944, the front lift spacers,
Mm-hmm.
to allow more people to engage in this new
Right.
activity. Because people had the 944, they just didn't have the tools to do this, and
Yeah,
no one
where
else.
do you get a lift kit? You can't just Google lift kit 944. It's not like a Jeep TJ.
Yeah. And not many people have the skills that I do to be able to CAD model the parts. And you know, I can't take full credit for designing the whole part. There's a group of guys out in Germany called Only a Road Trip Away, and they had the original blueprints. And like
Mm-hmm.
I talked to them, and in Germany they can't sell them, they can't modify a car legally on the road.
Okay.
So you know, I had the blueprints for it and I designed my own. And I was like, hey, I'm going to start allowing more people to buy them, you know, to make this, to join this new, you know, fad,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. And, you know, I've sold 27 or 30 lift kits. So that's
Heck yeah.
27 to 30 new off-road 944s that
That's
didn't
so
exist
cool.
before. Like that's cool. So there are a lot of people with the 986, but not a lot of people with the roof rack. So
Hmm.
that's my next project is design and sell a cheap modular, more or less, roof rack. So you
You
can,
understand, you just announced that for the people right now.
yes, but they don't have my design, which is unique.
No, no, no. I'm saying that that's you're making a product announcement. That's huge.
Yes,
So
yes,
so guys, if you're interested, again,
yeah,
944 Rally, and we're gonna ask Nick to plug all his projects at the end of the episode. But so
yeah,
okay, so you're staying with the Porsche train. You're staying with
yeah.
Porsche.
So when I broke the motor the second or the third time, I kind of basically threatened to put an LS in it because I needed
I
reliability. I
saw
wanted,
that story. Yep, I saw it.
I just wanted to to go out in the woods and be able to come back without
Hmm.
breaking. But then I was like, I it's not that I have this like loyalist, need to be in Porsche.
Hmm.
But I enjoy them, and I do enjoy the people that have now kind of become a network.
Right.
And this guy Daniel, Daniel's an angel. He is a follower, and he sent me one day that he I broke my engine, put a new one in, and then the head broke.
Uh-huh.
He said, I will build you a new head and fly out there and put it in because I want to see this car back on the road.
Hell
I
yeah.
was like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? Money? He's like, no, I like what you do. And I think we, could do similar things. And he ended up building one too. So he's got an
Dude.
off-road 944, and he's just the nicest guy out in Arkansas. And he flew all the way out here to North Carolina and helped me put this in. And unfortunately it lasted for 9 hours, and then it got rod knock, so
Right.
not anything to do with the head, but
Right. Yeah.
um so but he said, when he heard me make that threat, that he would be happy to rebuild the engine if I paid for the cost of parts. And I was
Right.
like, well, um I'm gonna buy this other Porsche, so give me a second to recoup, and
Hmm.
I'll find some money, and I want to pay you to do it. Because I don't want him to just like keep offering himself, and
Right.
like I want allow people to be kind and feel good about what they do in this life, but I also want to be able to offer
Hmm.
and give benefit to people and give reassurance that they can continue to live in their passion.
Right.
So I'm building this 986 to earn money and raise money over content creation, to then fund him to rebuild this motor and put a cam in it and make it a nasty, choppy,
Heck
round
yeah.
monster. So it'll be cool.
So
um
here's a question then.
yeah.
You've you've fabbed up a 944 lift kit. How are you going to get the 986 off the ground?
So there are two routes. One, I could take the measurements and get my calipers out and like take all
Hmm.
the measurements and look at blueprints that Porsche's got. Or there's a company in town called Eurowise, and they made a lift kit for the Cayman. Now, I don't know if in 2008 they changed slight dimensions of the suspension
Right.
hat, but it's worth taking a look at. And I talked to Mike, the owner, and he said, come check it out and see if it works. So if that works, then hopefully I can buy one of theirs and help push another company in the community. Um,
By the way, everyone's asking where I got my um fog light brackets for my 944. I'm running to just hella touring lights on the front. It's
yeah,
Eurowise. So
yeah,
it's just their universal
yeah,
license plate. I think they made it for the Cayenne, but I mean it's gonna fit on any car. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
shout out to them.
Yeah, and I learned about Eurowise through I believe it was Harry, the 957 adventure guy, Harry
Hmm.
Schoen, because he's got the Cayenne and he lifted it up with all the Eurowise parts.
Hmm.
So I learned about them, but then I moved across the country to North Carolina and learned that they were just 15 minutes away.
Well, that's awesome.
And I've been here for a year and I haven't had the time to meet them yet, but I'll get there.
Now you have the opportunity.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's kind of the route. Kind of use their lift kit, be able to promote, other people in the community.
Hmm.
So that's because that's what I would rather do instead of capitalize on everything myself. I want to have this more unified network
Right.
of people that all kind of support each other, more or less a capitalistic hippie commune,
Right. I mean, you laugh, but the truth is like that the only reason that I'm here right now on social media with the platform that I have is because like with the Time Teller channel, which is a wristwatch based channel, I wanted to make the content that I did not see in the
Right,
space.
right,
And I realized that watch collecting, much like car collecting or being an aficionado of Porsches or what have you, there's going to be this like gatekeepy class,
yeah,
the upper echelon, and it can really turn people away, and it can really intimidate people from getting into a hobby that could be really enriching and really beautiful. And wristwatches was that for me. It is that for me. It's incredibly fun networking, meeting people. The people I get to talk to, um, because of this hobby I joined years ago,
yeah,
it's changed my life. I mean, the only reason I'm here talking to Nick and Greg is literally because of the wristwatch community. It's allowed me to branch out and make various types of content. But what I'm trying to say is I wanted to make content that was accessible, that brought people into the community and made it fun and kind of removed any of the apprehension. And I see you doing that with the really fun dynamic content that you make, bringing people not only into just general cars, not only into just like, you know, safari builds and off-roading, but like getting people accessibly into the Porsche community. That's quite a feat, man.
yeah. And like, well, so I want to touch base real quick on when you got into watches. Did you
Mhm.
feel that kind of barrier of elitism? Did you
100%.
feel, yeah? So
100%.
how did you get through that?
I made I just kind of sacked up and was like, well, I'm just gonna make the content that I wish that I have right now. And guess what? Nick, I know that you've only been following me for a little bit, but I'm like the most hated person in the watch community, and it's because
Oh
I
no,
don't
what's that
follow
gonna do to me,
I don't no. I just don't follow their rules. I just
Yeah,
don't like I don't care where a watch is made, where the hardcore opinion is that it has to be Swiss or else it's not good.
yeah,
That's not true. The where a watch is made is kind of irrelevant because there's bad watches from Switzerland and there's really good watches from Asia. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter. I just don't really follow any of the conventional rules, and I just enjoy what I enjoy. I'm opinionated, I'm loud, I'm crack jokes. I'm not one of these turtleneck wearing, sports coat wearing dudes, you
right,
know, drinking like Cavassier in a study. Like, no, I'm some weirdo loudmouth that likes loud cars and anime girls, and I like wristwatches. Like, I'm just my own dude. And guess what? I'm not totally unique. If I like watches and I'm just a weird normal dude, that means there's probably millions of other weird
oh yeah,
normal dudes that like watches.
yeah. And
And
that's the thing that I'm learning too. Like when I was building this car, no one else had really done it, and I didn't know anyone else that had done it. But now there's all these other, like-minded, if you want to say weirdos, yeah. But
yeah,
I'm just
hell
gonna
yeah.
say
It's
fanatic.
cool to be weird, guys. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
cool to be weird.
And like it's an unlikely, underdog story. It's that kind of thing. But like the fact that you can find more people like that through this platform or multiple different platforms, like that's cool. I'm pretty antisocial. Pretty. I'm not gonna say recluse, but pretty introverted. So like being able to have other people, whether it's through the internet, but show that they believe in this idea, and that's the biggest thing is an idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
They always say you can't kill an idea. So the fact that there are other people that believe this, it's like, let's grow this more. Let's find more of these people and like give them more hope, give them more light,
Mm-hmm.
give them something more to do and believe in. So that's kind of where I'm at. But like in your watch game, I don't know hardly anything about watches, but I can only imagine it's relatively the same thing. Someone that's small and has a smaller budget for a watch, like maybe they start with a simple, I don't know what it would be, but
Mm-hmm.
something simple like slowly
Right.
working up, and then they start to feel more part of the community. And another community I learned about was boutique keyboards. Uh, And that was such a weird industry, but it's such a fascinating one. And being a designer, I designed a couple keyboards and put them on Reddit. They got some
Uh-huh.
notoriety. I was going to design and build them and sell them and stuff. And that was before COVID.
Right.
But like all these weird have such massive support now. And now that Vero's got me kind of hooked on this watch, I'm like, now how do I tie more into the watch world? And how do I become like more intrigued with the things that make me intrigued with the car? How do I find that in the watch? And I'm basically starting from the beginning.
I mean, you're kind of doing it, in my opinion, man. A watch is a tool that you have on your wrist, regardless of what you're doing day to day, right? If you're diving, if you're hiking, if you're flying, if you're driving,
Yeah.
camping, it's a tool on your. That's the charm that I find with watches, and the charm that I find with cars is, I mean, there's a reason why most car guys at least understand the appreciation with watches and vice versa, and it's because watches and cars, they're dynamic art. Not to be too like cheesy woo woo about this, but it's something mechanical that someone had to design and put together that not only has to work efficiently and effectively and accurately, but also it must be beautiful. And
Yeah.
so the cool thing that I love about cars is like, look, this is an environment. Like when I'm in a car, it's the environment that I have to be in for extended periods of the day. When especially in LA, I don't know if you've ever been out here. Probably don't come here, Nick. But terrible
I've been down
traffic.
there a number of times. Yeah.
Yeah, just terrible traffic. So if you're going to be in your car for extended periods of time, at least enjoy it. Have a cool space to
Right.
be in, and
Right.
and enjoy what you're doing. And I'm here in a 35 plus year old like rattly 944, no airbags, AC that works just barely,
At least you
and
got some AC and you're not
yeah,
30. I got
and
nothing.
I'm grinning like an idiot. And I'm not
Yeah.
even going that fast. It's
Yeah.
just a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And so here's a question for you. This is going to be a difficult one, by the way. I told you, but before we started recording, I was like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to grill you." But this is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
What has been, because you've done a lot, what has been your favorite bit of content or favorite place that you've gone with the 944?
I want to say it's the piece that is by far not the most popular. I recently did these goofy little pitchy videos with this character called Mick Haloon, and that name is based on how servers at restaurants or like at Starbucks, how they think I said my name. So they'll write some ridiculous version of my name. So I'm like, I'm just going to use that character. But like, for years, I've always created these little characters to go with the work that I do. Like I said, I ran a film company for a long time, and I made little animated videos for a keyboard company. I voiced all these characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lot of fun just becoming all these different people. And like it was during COVID, for instance, and my neighbors could hear me voice acting all these little cartoons. And they're like, "What the fuck is that?" Like, I'm like speaking in British, and now I'm speaking like country, southern, or just yelling profanities, and then this and that. But like creating all these characters and creating a whole new little world is something that I enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
and it ties into this whole thing. Like I'm creating this whole little world that I personally really enjoy, and turns out other people do too. But creating this character Mick Loon, who's this over the top sales pitchy from the 90s, like you'll see on UFC,
Right.
just garbage on TV, with his gut sticking out. It's really hard for me to push my gut out that far, but like I just want to look kind of dirty and
Right.
have a little bit of a limp.
Exactly.
So, I had a lot of fun creating this, and it's funny for me to make. And it doesn't get the most views, but I really like doing it.
Hey man,
Um,
you got to make some of the content. You got to make some for them, and you got to make some for yourself.
yeah. And I want to say most of it is for me because I'm a visual person, and I ran, like I said, I did film.
Mm-hmm.
So it is for me to get that amazing shot. It is for me to, you know, get that sunset roller, and make it
Right.
over action packed and like weaving through the scene. Like that is for me because I love that. I love getting those shots. And I work for a race car team and we do that in the media side too. And it's like we have these 1,000 horsepower drift cars
Hmm.
and 800 horsepower off-road race Broncos, and we are always trying to get these shots out in the desert or at the racetrack. And it's like I live for getting and telling that version of a story.
Hmm.
So I can do that inspirational side, but then I always got to do that goofball, like just whacked in the head side.
Hey man,
Yeah.
it's if it's not part of you, if part of you is not in your art, then it's
Yeah.
not sincere. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is that like art is selfish. I know some people say art's selfless. It's expression for other people. The truth is, dude, like with all the content I make, it's because I want to make the content. And it's like this conversation we're having right now. Yes, I want to share your story and your projects with the viewers and listeners. But the truth is like, man, Greg and I just want to sit down and talk to Nick. Like
Yeah.
it's
And you got a business to run, it's like it's all these little pieces together,
right,
you know? And like you said, art, they used to say art is selfless or whatever, but no, it's not. A painter would not throw their painting on the ground in anger if it wasn't selfless. They would
right,
paint it, well, I'm gonna give this, and it was my emotion, blah, blah, blah. But like an artist or a designer, they will throw that shit on the ground if they don't like it. They
right,
will move on and like try again and try again and try again until they feel it's right.
right.
And then they put it out to the world and either tell other people that it's right or let the people decide.
Hmm.
But like it all kind of ties together in that way. And um, I'm kind of jumping topic here, but while I have it in my head, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Um, I was once asked why cars? Like, why do I enjoy cars? And I had an answer, but I want to know like why, what makes you dive that deeply into a car? Culturally, personally, emotionally.
Right.
Don't
So
think about the parts necessarily, but think about like your personal connection to this machine.
totally. First of all, and this is like a true conversation because you're actually the first guest we've had, and we recorded like 10, I think.
Yeah,
You're like the first guest we've had that's been asking me questions, which is awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, so my this is going to be like a multi-part answer. Um, the first thing that got me into cars and watches was my dad. He always wore a watch. Greg knows my dad had Porsches growing up. Greg and I have been friends since we were little.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so he kind of bit me with that bug, so to speak. Like I was like, okay, cars are really cool. My dad's really cool. He has watches that's really cool.
Yeah,
But moreover, um, to not talk about like cars specifically, like specific cars, my interest is kind of what I've already touched upon, where it's a bunch of things that people had to spend time and and really like to the calipers degree, the tiniest degree, fit together and make work. And it's something that has okay, I've said this multiple times on my channel, and I am obsessed with learning like things, okay? And I was a terrible student. But if there is something I am interested in and it has a seemingly never ending amount that I can read about, then I will be hooked on it forever. And watches
yeah.
affords me that, and cars afford me that. And because there are more cars than I will ever, dude, there are accounts that I follow that post like random cars that I've and pretty much daily there's like a new car that I learn about that came out that I've never
Yeah.
heard of. And
Like
so
I thought
then
I've seen a lot of the cars, but all of a sudden one little like random
right,
Aston Martin from 1972 shows up. I'm like, well, where did that
right,
come
and then that takes you down the rabbit hole. Who designed this? When what preceded this? Oh, what came after that? Oh, this like, and so I guess without getting like too deep into it, I love cars because they remind me of my dad. Um, but and so there's some sentimental stuff there. But
Is
also,
your, this may be too deep of a question, but is your father still around?
yeah, yeah, thankfully. Yeah, he's still around. Um, and also though, it's kind of what you mentioned. Um, it's a visceral experience. It's not something that is static. It is not something that you look at from afar. It's a feeling. It's literal chemicals that get released in your body when you are experiencing this, that you're like you are feeling. I don't know, dude, if you've never been on a canyon ride, and I'm not talking to Nick, I'm
Right.
talking to the viewers and the listeners. Like, if you've never been on a canyon run in a car, doesn't even have to be a fast car. If you push it just to the limit a little bit, and you have that feeling of going through a switchback, going through a corner, seeing what you're seeing, feeling what you're feeling. I I beg you, try not to smile. Try not to step out of the car and grin your face off and say, I want to do that again. It's impossible. It is impossible. And so for all the crap that I talk about California, Los Angeles specifically, we have the best canyon roads, dude. And it is so fun. And I'm so fortunate that I've gotten to experience this like at the time that I did. But yeah, to answer your question, it's because it's a very dynamic form of experiencing something that reminds me of my dad that I can learn endlessly about. I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
never, ever, ever reach a limit to it would just be impossible. I'm never going to learn everything there is about cars. It's
yeah.
impossible. And that's
Because
what
it's
keeps me
always evolving and progressing, and like
right.
it's not going to stop. It's just going
Right.
to change. That's all.
And then the last thing that I would say um is it's the people. It's the people that I've been able to interact with. I mean, dude, everything has become politicized nowadays to the point where like you really can't talk about anything without like offending someone. But the cool thing is when you pull up to a parking lot, it doesn't even have to be a car show or a meet, but you pull up to a parking lot, some dude turns and looks at your car and then gives you that thumbs up, and then you're like, hey, thanks, man. And then those little words exchanged at a gas station or outside of Starbucks, or when you're going to pay your meter, like just those little nods, those little short, sentence long interactions, all the way to when you pull up to a car meet and Jay Leno shows up and then you're talking, and then there's not,
Yeah, yeah,
it's the people you meet and it's the experiences you have. I mean, dude, I don't know if you experienced this when you got the 944 Nick, but for some reason I have this lowered, loud ass 996. It has the Fab Speed Super Cup exhaust. It is insanely loud. Um, I drive that around. People don't bat an eye. They don't care. The day I got the 944, I took it to the 76 by my house, filled it up. I didn't have the fog lights. It wasn't lowered. I didn't have the gold wheels. It was like totally stock.
yeah,
Didn't even wash it yet. Four people came up to me,
yeah,
like four separate people, like they didn't know each other. They came
yeah,
up to me while I was pumping, and they're like, "Man, I haven't seen one of those in so long." And someone was like, "What is that?" And then
yeah,
another person was like, "Is that an old Z?" And I was like, "No, but I see what you're talking about. It's actually a Porsche." They're like, "Whoa, that's a Porsche!"
yeah.
And then it's insane how this little unsuspecting front engine Porsche that is not valuable, it is not fast, it is
It is
old,
just cool.
it is cool.
Yeah. And like, I experienced a similar thing, but when I was living in Washington, I never took it to car shows and like around the city. I always took it out to the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
It became in the town I was living in kind of this, niche legend of
Mm-hmm.
this rally Porsche running around the Mount Baker wilderness. And it was like every now and then some kid would see it coming through the woods. I'd be coming down the hill or whatever. They're like, what the?
Right,
And
right,
first of all, cool car that you never see. And second of all, it's in a place that you're not supposed to see it.
right.
You do not see those things out there ever. And so, some little kid that, lives out in the boonies out there gets to see this red, shiny race car looking thing roll by, and they're like, they've never seen anything like it in their life.
Right.
Or some old fella has never seen anything like it in his life, even though he knows what it is. He's never
Exactly.
been on a dirt road. So it's cool little things like that. And when I moved to Charlotte, there was this girl driving a Lotus, and it was like, kind of teal and slammed to the ground. It was
Mm-hmm.
cool. She drove by me and like double took at me and like gave me the thumbs up, and I was like, "You think I'm
Yeah,
cool?
you think I'm
You're on
cool?
a
Look at you,
Lotus."
you're driving. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at your whole situation. Like, you're cool.
But
So,
wait, so I want to turn it back on you though. Why cars for you?
so my mom and I talk about that a lot. And, because we're trying to figure, I talk with my mom all the time, and we talk about where we got to this point in our lives. And my
Hmm.
mom has gone through all kinds of changes in her life, and where she's at is very dramatically different than where she was 5 years ago. Like, how did she end up there? And then we, talk about it for me. Like, I've done so many different things, and it's like, how in the world did I get here? I feel like Forrest Gump, just like blowing with that little feather through the world, and like, here the fuck I am.
Right.
Yeah, it's so weird, but like, the one thing that has always been consistent was cars. And it's so hard to say exactly what that starting point was, but I remember in elementary school, I go to library and I hated reading. I hated doing math,
Yep.
but I
Same.
knew where that go-kart book was in the library, and I check it out every single time. And I just look at the go-karts, look how cool they were, look at the race graphics, and
Hmm.
imagine what it's like to grip the turn, because I just was obsessed with it. And then I always tried to build my own go-kart, didn't have the know-how to do it.
Right.
And I finally bought a go-kart for like $100. It was this homemade death trap. And then one year my dad had a really good year, and we got into junior drag racing. So I raced
Ooh.
a 16-foot junior dragster for a year, and then we blew up the motor and couldn't afford to fix it, so we got out of it.
Right.
Um,
That must have been exhilarating though.
yeah, because the very first time I drove it, the brakes failed. I was 12 years old in a parking lot, and these things aren't meant to turn. And I whip around a turn, and they're narrow.
Right.
I don't know how it didn't flip, but I whipped around this turn. He was like, "You shouldn't take the turn that fast." I'm like, the brakes didn't work. And so, but then, it evolved from this kind of like obsession with these cars that look cool, go fast, and have this presence to them, to then having this kind of emotional connection.
Hmm.
And when I was asked why cars, a person that rode horses, and I asked them, well, why horses? And they said it was this connection between, two non-native speaking things. Like, the horse can't speak English, it understands some words, and the human kind of,
We
gets
can't
along
speak
with it.
horse. Yeah.
No, but they have this way of communicating. It's through pushing, edging the heel in, tugging on the reins, doing all these little tiny movements, having this presence of your own confidence to keep the horse calm. And then I was like, it's the same thing with cars. You feel things through your butt, you're feeling things through your toes, your hands, your eyes, your smell, everything. You're using your senses machine. And I know it sounds so cliche, but when you finally learn it yourself, it all clicks and makes sense. So when I realized that I could control this machine to the verge of its collapse and take it to the edge of its driving capability, that's when that symbiotic relationship kind of appeared.
You like honed in.
Yeah. And so then when I started getting into car design, I didn't design necessarily for aesthetics or necessarily for the parts. Like, I don't give a damn about what Garrett turbo you have.
Hmm.
It's not what I'm into. I'm more into how a person feels in the automotive element that they are. So like, when I feel cool in the 944, like, why is that? How do I capture that? How do I relay that to someone in the future?
Hmm.
So like, I was designing hot rods for a while. And if I got to redesign an entire interior, how did I make that tie into the experience of the car? How is it that these three lines are represented through the dash, through the steering, through the shift knob, down
Hmm.
to the trans tunnel, up the seat, like all these formal kind of relations into each other? Like, how does it make someone feel? How does it represent the experience they're going to drive with it? Like in BMW, they always say the ultimate driving machine. And then when you drive, always tell it's a BMW. Why is that? It's
Hmm.
how they engineered it. They designed an experience to be had. So how do I design that experience? That's what I'm getting at. Is like, I chose cars because I get to relay my thoughts of an experience to someone else. Um, and if I can't do it verbally, then I'll do it through expression of, images, or just letting someone drive the car,
Right.
put the right song on, have a soundtrack to your life. So it's this whole experiential, vicarious, emotive experience.
Hmm.
And cars are that for me. They represent all of it together.
So as we've gone over today, you've done a lot. Let's see, you're on Instagram. Again, more followers than me. Doesn't bother me. Don't worry, I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, but your YouTube, you got 188,000 or whatever. I got like maybe 1,000 on mine.
So speaking to that, we see where you are now. Where do you want to be and what projects do you have going on? Where can people find you?
So, did you ask where I'm at now? Was that
Yeah,
part of that?
so we see that you're on Instagram. You mentioned that you're on YouTube. Where can people find you, and what projects do you have going on, and hopefully into the future?
So, you can find me on Instagram as 944Rallye with an E on the end, or you can find me on YouTube, same name, 944Rallye with an E. And there's little bits of content, and you'll be able to see my content that I made for years past when I was running a film company. I've been doing like little vlogs and little bits of content just for years,
Hmm.
just my own stuff. Um, and like this is just another continuation of everything that I like doing: design, film, and driving. And I am trying to represent and showcase all of that through my own lens,
Hmm.
you know, pun unintended. um, and it's like, so in the future for projects, I've just got this 986 and I'm trying to, here's my overarching goal.
Hmm.
I've always had and owned kind of the subpar versions of cars, like the Mazda RX-8. Not the coolest one. It's weird. It's rotary and it blows up, but it's got this kind of cool thing to it.
Right.
Suicide doors, it's weird.
Yeah.
I had the Volvo T5. It's not the R, but it's the V70 T5. It's just a little bit below,
Hmm.
and that's what the Boxster is, and that's what the 944 is. And so they're all these kind of younger brothers that are looking up to the older brothers that have a big shoe to fill. And I'm trying
Hmm.
to showcase, let's not forget about these. Let's bring these back into the light. So my next project is the Boxer 986. Granted, it's the S, so it's got the 3.2, 250 horsepower, but like no one's done anything with that. So I'm working on that. In the future, I would like to expand more into being just driving, living, and diving, and you know, showcasing a lifestyle and just living the way I want to live under my own power, under my own influence and motivations. Like I don't want to have to necessarily respond to other people about what I need to do.
Hmm.
And not everyone has that luxury, and not everyone has the skill or the knowledge or the willingness to go find that ability to do things on your own.
Right.
But I've done it before and I want to get back to it. I want to be under my own power. So you'll find me on YouTube, Instagram, and probably not TikTok because I just not into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Neither
be
am
with
I.
all the tweenies.
You're not gonna do any dances, dude. You're not gonna do any lip sync dances. I'll take.
I
Come
mean,
on, man. The people want it.
I can throw some moves down, but it's
Yeah.
got to be like some 80s, 90s.
Heck yeah. So, okay. You've also mentioned though potential product releases.
Yeah. So, with these projects that I do, there's all these limitations with custom elements, and not everybody has the means or the skill or know-how to make them happen.
Hmm.
So, just like any other product company, I'd like to be able to supply that to the people that want to partake.
Right.
I don't necessarily want to be a product supplier, as my one source of income, but as a part doing small pieces and constantly progressing the nature of how these automotive pieces are used. Like,
I mean, you have unique builds, and it looks like you're about to do another one with the 986 Boxster. And I can't tell you how many times I get questions in my DMs like, "Hey, where did you find that one part?" or "How did you accomplish this?" or "How did you?" And so with you, with your unique platforms, and with everybody reposting images of your stuff and everything, yeah, instead of being like, "Hey, where did you get those brackets for this or that?" you can be like, "Well, I make it." So it makes
yeah,
sense that you would be that um
yeah.
purveyor.
And I don't want to be the maker of everything
Hmm.
for them. I want to still, like, there's ply hammers, there's 944 barn, there's Pelican parts, um, and there's all these other companies that supply these parts already. Like, and they have been good to me. So I'd like to be able to have the power and the luxury to be able to support them and
Hmm.
tell them of what they're doing. So I just want to have that one little piece of the pie that no one else can access
Hmm.
because they haven't done it before, that they haven't thought of it. And so my nature is to solve the problem, fill the hole, and supply it to other people. So, it doesn't got to be the engine mounts, but it can be the roof rack for the 986 that you can't get anymore.
Right.
Just rare little things that come up as a unique item that I can design.
All right. So, Nick, I ask this to each of my guests on the podcast, and it's kind of deep. You've touched upon some of this, I'm sure, already, but if this could be the last recording you ever make, what would you leave us with? What piece of advice or what statement would you make?
Eat your veggies. No, uh, I would.
Okay,
So
mom.
there's, right. Well, I mean, I drive the spicy mom car now,
Yeah.
so um, so there's a few little messages that pray and live and lead by example through. And one of them is being comfortable with the unknown. And I didn't necessarily realize that, but when I did an interview with a different magazine, he said, he's like, I see an overarching theme of diving into the unknown. And literally through freediving, I'll dive high alpine lakes that no human has ever touched the bottom of because no one else has hiked 50 pounds of dive gear into the mountains.
Mhm.
And with computers and cars, there are these kind of mystical objects that really understand. Like they take a computer to a shop and get it fixed, or they take a car to the mechanic and have them fix it. But um, like I want to inspire people to just dive in and be okay with not knowing something because you have the means and the brain to figure it out, to solve a problem, and just use critical logical thinking to get through something. And we don't have to, you don't have to Google it. You can just take it apart, keep track of it, move on, fix it. And that doesn't just tie into, automotive or diving. It can be a personal thing too. Like you can fix your own problems. It takes a lot of willpower. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of practice and focus to make yourself a better person. And so that's kind of the big theme that I'd like to portray is just being okay with not knowing and figuring it out. And you, at the end, you come out with the confidence and you know that you can solve a problem. Um, and it's like I said before, there's a lot of cliche things that you learn in these goofy sayings, but like
Hmm.
don't realize what it means until you learn it yourself.
Right.
And same thing with fixing an engine. Um, take it apart, figure it out, learn it. All of a sudden, an engine, and you can put it back together. Just label it, be organized,
Right.
don't throw your shit around.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I would say. I just be okay with not knowing stuff.
Awesome. There you have. I couldn't have said it better myself, guys. Nick from 944 Rallye with an E at the end. We'll have all his information in the description below of the video. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on YouTube as well. And speaking of YouTube, if you're listening to this, you're probably listening to it on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll be listening to this, or you can find it on YouTube, Things That Keep Me Up at Night. We'll also be doing a teaser of this on T3 Time to Drive. And Nick, if you are ever in LA or on the West Coast, I hope we can collaborate sometime and you can do a walk around on my little 944 build, even though instead of going up, it's going down. But yeah, dude, I'm so thankful that we were able to talk to you. I know you're a busy dude. I know that you have a lot of projects going, but you do truly have one of the coolest 944 builds.
Thank
And
you.
the Boxster, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what you do with that.
It's going to be cool. There's a lot of partners now that are hyped about it, and so they want to be a part of it, and it's going to be cool. I'm
I'm
not going to release exactly what is going to happen yet until I start making the content for it. But
Right.
it's going to be cool.
That's awesome. Well, guys, follow him. Again, links in the description below. And guys, follow us here. I know we're kind of a new podcast, but hopefully you can check us out and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and support us on Patreon, because we are not monetized yet and we don't have sponsors yet, but that will come. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on another installment of Things That Keep Me Up at Night. Nick, thank you so much for being here, bro.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invite.
Awesome. All right, guys, we will catch you on the next one. Love you guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed.